You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
All right, what's up, Coaches Nation? This is Dr. Sheri Fluellen with the Coach's Journey podcast, and we are here not with Faisal, as I normally have as my co-host, but we are here with Jeff Cockrell. He is also one of the leaders of the Coaching Mastery community, who is the sponsor for our podcast. Our conversation today is going to be highly relevant to some of you that are listening because Jeff has a very long history. Just a very long history. Just kidding. No.
Thank you. Thanks.
He's got a very long history as a master trainer with the Dale. Oh my gosh.
Dale
Carnegie. Yeah. I just made him a woman. Gail. Sorry, Dale. And so he's been training in a lot of venues and around leadership and around communication and a bunch of really important things. So the question, he's already been doing this for a long time and is a master trainer. Why would he then go and become a coach or add that to it? So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about how coaching interplays with some of these other related fields, but they're still a little bit separate, but are they? So these are some of the questions we're going to talk about today, because we want you to start thinking about maybe how you can start to interweave some of the things that you have experience in and that you're either doing now or that you might want to add in a new and unique way. So welcome, Jeff. Can you give a little bit of your history, your long history?
I'm not sure. Does that mean I just have to speak slowly so I elongate it, or just cram a bunch of stuff in? But let me see. I spent 11 years as an officer in the Navy. I got out, and after about a year, started working with Dale Carnegie. I started just selling for the first couple of years. And after a while, I got certified to train, and I sold and I taught. And I got certified to train in 1996, and then did it for about 4, 5, 6 years, and left, did some other things, and realized I really love this. I love the ability to work with folks to help them become more like the people they are capable of being. And then after a few years, one of the consistent challenges that people would have is we do a Dale Carnegie program. They experience tremendous growth. And then they're like, what else you got? And all I had was another course.
Yeah.
Leadership training for managers, high impact presentations. But and most of our courses are over a length of time. So it's almost like coaching. We just coach on around specific areas: self-confidence, leadership, people skills, communications, and managing stress. But they were like, okay, how do I stay immersed in this? And what I realized was we didn't really have a coaching program. And I also realized that since I was trading my time for dollars, it really wasn't scalable. And so I began to cast around for what else can I add to the mix? I didn't want to cannibalize the Dale Carnegie business or do anything unethical. Always kind of believed in the saying, you dance with the one that brung you. And I'd been with Carnegie for a couple of decades. And it's, like I said, since become a master trainer, but I realized that we don't offer coaching. And I happened to find Brendan Burchard in certified high performance coaching. And there is some overlap, but there's a lot of distinction. There are things we do in Carnegie that they don't touch on in high performance, and things we do in high performance that we don't really talk about in Dale Carnegie. So we're not mutually exclusive. They also, there wasn't a mirror image.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love that. And my own journey was similar in that I was doing something and then I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know what to do next. Like, I know what I want to do, but I don't quite have the skill set or the foundation. And so yeah, you found that high performance coaching that seemed to be the great next step for being able to kind of take individuals on a journey beyond what you've been giving them in the training.
Yes.
arena.
Yeah, very much so. And so I've been, now the challenge is as we talk about this title is, okay, well, how do I marry the two? How do I put them together?
Yeah. How do you?
Well, right now it's kind of clunkily, if that's a word.
It is now. I think everybody knows exactly what you're saying.
But the challenge, as Sheri and I started off on the original conversation just beforehand, was how do you balance this stuff? And I'm kind of realizing that in order to make it work, it really needs to be integrated, unless we're really good at segmenting. But what I found is, as a solopreneur, it's hard to make that distinction. And often the strengths that we have, if we're going to be coaching, that's what we ought to be coaching people on. We ought to be coaching people on stuff we know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the business books that we've been reading are about, that there's this tendency for when we get good at something, we're like, okay, mission accomplished, on to the next thing.
Yep.
But rather the more wise and productive thing is like, what can I add? Not what else can I do instead?
Yes. Yeah. And the challenge that I've noticed, at least with me, is when we get really good at something, or when I get really good at something, I tend to think, like, I'm good at it. It's got to be easy for everybody else. And then I talk to people and they're like, no, that's really hard for me. And I think, seriously? But it's because I've spent a long time mastering it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge. That's a challenge we often face, is the things we're good at, we think everybody must be good at those. Things that are hard for us, we think, well, it must be hard for everybody. And then we find that one person like, oh my God, it's just easy for them. They're the one in a million. No, they're just the one in a million we found.
Yeah. So how are you, or how have you integrated the two, or figured out how to integrate, I guess is the best word. And then we can go to kind of where you're at now and kind of what you're working on.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm reminded, there's a Russian proverb: if you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one. And so, as I've been chasing 3 rabbits, basically, I'm running a lot.
Well, that's good exercise. It'll help for you.
I'm just not sure I'm getting closer to the rabbits. One of the things that I've thought about that I has recently come to mind is, since I already teach Dale Carnegie, and I know that the challenge we have is we don't have a coaching component. And I mean, I don't know what the reasons are for that. I just know that we don't have that. And I was thinking, since I'm currently certified to train everything that we have, and I'm also a coach, a great way for me to put those together would be to market to, say, a specific group of individuals, and they would meet in a Dale Carnegie program that I would teach, and probably in our foundation program for 3 days. And then I would put them into a coaching program where we meet as a group, and probably 1 or 2 individual sessions per person over the course of 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah.
Then bring them back together for another training program.
That's interesting.
And then more coaching, and probably a capstone training program, which would help them, in my mind, strengthen their business acumen, strengthen their business execution, and also give them an opportunity to connect with people at their level. It's an idea that I thought about, and then I've kind of put it on the back burner, thinking all this other stuff will be easier. What I realize is most of this stuff that I need for that is already in place.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it's so easy. I don't want to do that. That actually might work.
I love how you are really thinking about integrating the 2 things that you already do. Yeah. In a way where you're not having to necessarily generate even more leads or client, would there be an opportunity for you to collaborate with another trainer who delivers the training, and then maybe you deliver some of the follow-on stuff?
Well, that's a possibility. The other thing I've thought about then is that running this once or twice, then it's something that I can train other master trainers to do in their areas and take a cut.
Jeff, it's okay to talk about profit and money.
I look at this and I think I cannot be the only guy. I can't be the first guy who's thought about this.
Right.
But I do believe that there's a real market for this. And that's the next step, is to figure out how do we, what's the offer we need to create. And I do think it can be hugely powerful. What's interesting is I've floated the idea to some other folks, and they're like, and I've talked about the price point. And they're like, well, that's really too much. And so I've been reading some stuff recently, and I'm thinking, why am I listening to that? Why am I trying to undercut the market? Right? And because what I'm really thinking about is, to my knowledge, unique. I know in the world of Dale Carnegie, we don't offer it.
Yeah.
And I know that we have a phenomenal reputation. And apparently, so do I. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. They made me a master trainer, but they raised the standards right after it happened. So, like, whoa, can't have that happen again. Let's bump this up.
I love that idea. And for all of you that are listening, Jeff and we are both leaders in the Coaching Master community, and we are in conversation at least 3 hours a week.
Yeah, we are.
This is the first time I've heard this actual idea.
Really? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
To me, it makes a lot of sense to do this because but it's, and here's the thing, is it marries really two of my passion. Well, actually, it marries, it's two avenues for the same passion. My personal belief is we're all individually crafted by God, and that his goal is to bring us into a relationship with him. And throughout our life, he works to grow us into the person who'll fit perfectly into the spot in his heart that is reserved for us. And I'm a firm believer that Satan uses fear to make that job more difficult. And my job is to help overcome some of that fear. I'm not the be all and end all, but if I can help them become more like the person God has designed them to be, then that for me is personally fulfilling. And that's why I do Dale Carnegie. It's why I do coaching. And as I think about it, then it's really about putting the two together, because both of them are about helping people grow into the person they are capable of being, and I believe designed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing the why behind what kind of moved you in that direction. What other ways have you been working on implementing or aligning the coaching with the Dale Carnegie stuff?
Well, another aspect is with Veteran Academy, which is another initiative I'm working on. It took me I think it was, I don't know, 2016 or something like that. I was at an event and I heard this statistic. I was in my room, in my hotel room, getting ready to leave to go out to the main conference. And I heard this statistic that said 22 veterans commit suicide every day, which first of all, it stopped me. I was stunned. And I couldn't believe it, because people I've worked with are some of the sharpest, hardest working, most flexible people I'd ever met. And then my second thought was, not just me. I'm not the only guy that struggled with this transition.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't talk about it because I thought everyone else seems to be making it. Well, it must just be me. And then I realized but I couldn't put my finger on what it was that needed to shift for veterans, at least in my opinion. And my thought is that we come out of the service and we take the same rules of engagement that work in the military and try to impose them on our civilian world, and they don't work. And our tendency is to do it harder. And I'm often, it's just somebody needs to, I think, kind of give veterans permission to go, all right, you don't have to use those rules anymore. Take the ones that work, change the ones that don't.
Yeah.
And apply a different set of rules of engagement. And so part of that is because of the experience I have in delivering training and helping people undergo this kind of the mental change. There's an emotional change and behavior change, which results in performance change. And either one will result in performance change for a while, but they don't last unless we have both of them.
Mm-hmm.
The performance change doesn't take unless people view themselves differently and behave differently.
Yeah.
Then the results they get change. And that takes time. I mean, I would love to be able to drop a phrase and, oh my gosh, my world has changed. Everything is different now. But I have yet to find that phrase. And so it seems to me that if we can get people into community and help them continue to stay focused on what they want in life and challenge the goals challenge how they're going about achieving it, which sounds a lot like coaching, then we can help people move forward faster. And I believe that veterans can do that. I believe they can help each other, and we just need to kind of put that together and lead it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you're sharing these, not just Dale Carnegie, but also your experience as an officer in the Navy and how you're using that experience, that awareness, those networks to figure out how you can best serve now.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately, I think that's one of the reasons people get into coaching.
Yeah.
They want to serve. And I know that's also a driver for veterans because we were in the military, and part of that was, we were imbued with a sense of service, not servitude, but service to a higher calling.
Mm-hmm.
And we get out of the military and we feel like that calling has been stripped away. I don't believe it has. It just appears that it has. I'm a big believer that the best way for veterans to continue to serve is to succeed in a big way.
Yeah. Jeff, how would you encourage our listeners to think about what they're already competent in and some of their experiences, and how to maybe capitalize on that, integrate that, use that to their benefit in their coaching world?
First off, there's a couple of things to think about. First is, I believe personally that the experiences we have deserve to be honored because there's lessons we've learned from them. Now, sometimes the lessons, we're not conscious about them. And often the important experiences need to be examined because I suspect there is more than one lesson. And sometimes the lesson changes with time.
Yeah.
And perspective. And so often we have an experience that is profound for us and we take the wrong lessons from it. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is kind of go back and think about what are the things you've experienced that have had an impact on you. And then in addition to whatever lesson you learned, think about what other lessons are there for me to take away?
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then be thinking about what is your area of expertise? What do people come to you about when they struggle? Because often that's where we can help them. And then I would, and here's the question, here's the thing I'd ask you to write down. If you had to put, let's say 10 steps together for somebody to accomplish whatever it is you're good at, what would be those 10 things? And, here's this, the first step they'd have to do is this, then the next one. So for instance, if I'm thinking about somebody becoming a good speaker, I like to think I'm a good speaker. I train people in it. First things I'd be thinking about is understand what you're passionate about. What have you earned the right to talk about? What has value for people, for your prospective audience? Let me see. How do you generate energy? How do you connect with the room? How can we illustrate the points that you're going to make? And I don't know how many that is, probably 7 or 8. Then what are some, what are some openings and closings? And I think the other one is make sure we identify the audience and the purpose. So I would take those and put them into an order that made sense. And then if I was coaching people over, say, 12 weeks, then I would add an introduction and a conclusion section. Now I got my coaching program.
Boom. That was awesome. Those of you that were listening, if you're struggling, if you don't, if you weren't part of a certification that just gifted you and handed you like, here's your 12-step plan or whatever, this is great. This is really, really powerful and a simple way of being able to extract your zone of genius and the things that you're good at to be able to then, teach other people.
Yeah.
I love
that.
It
is, that's that. Just what, again, what would you tell somebody to accomplish what you've accomplished? It is that simple.
Now,
and also tell people to video themselves.
So Jeff, how would you, as I'm thinking through the 12-step program, not that kind of 12-step, but.
Hello, Sheri.
Hello, Jeff. I'm
a coach.
That's funny. How would we differentiate a coaching program versus like a how-to consulting, do these 12 steps and you'll get this, but rather have it more of a collaborative approach?
Yeah, that's actually one of the big challenges. It's also one of the big challenges with Dale Carnegie trainers is, we get so excited about what we do. We want to tell people what the answer is. And this is kind of my thought around coaching. If I tell somebody what the answer is, or what I think the answer is, it's still my answer. If I help them discover an answer, that becomes their answer. And so That's the thing. That's the one of the most challenging things about coaching is so often we think I'm telling someone what to do and then coaching them to do that. That's in my mind much more like consulting.
Yeah.
Or training. And those are great things. They're just not coaching. One of the points that I like about high performance coaching is there is a training element. Typically it comes in at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's no reason there can't be a training element at the beginning. But most of coaching is about, if we're going to train, if we're going to give people information up front, then the subsequent part of the session really ought to be about how they can implement it, not us telling them, helping them discover ways.
Yeah.
And getting them to commit to take action on those things that they say they want. And realizing the more questions we ask, the more successful we're going to be. I'm a big believer that questions equal control of the conversation. When we ask a question, people are thinking about the answer. We've directed their thoughts. If we spend our time talking, they can be in the Bahamas for all we know. Mentally. They're smiling and nodding.
I wouldn't mind physically being in the Bahamas, quite frankly.
No kidding.
That's great.
So
yeah. Yeah. And so as you were talking about that, I was imagining, so for example, like how to work the room. If that's part of the program, there would be some pretty basic principles that universally would work. But then the questions could be centered around, well, what has worked for you? What fits in your personality that feels genuine to you? At the same time, how do you grow, and what's growing in a way that's still in alignment with who you are? And so there's a lot of those application questions. So here's what we know is true. Now, what does it look like in your life?
Yes. Yeah. And one of the other things to be aware of as we grow is just because something's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not you.
Yes.
One of the examples I use, and if you're listening to this or watching this, go ahead and cross your arms. And then now, would you say the left elbow's on top or the right elbow's on top? And the reason the reason we do this is because this is what's comfortable for us, because we've done it a lot.
Jeff, you and I are opposite.
Okay.
My right hand is over my.
Well, my right hand is over, right? My right hand's on top, my left hand's underneath.
Oh, okay. It just looks opposite because of the way it looks on the screen.
Could be.
We're really the same. We're exactly the same.
Yeah, we're the same. We're the same. You just have a much nicer smile and longer hair. But then I say, okay, so we'll go ahead and uncross your arms and then cross them back the opposite direction, the opposite way.
I have to think about it.
Yeah. People are like, it is funny to watch because people now, how does that feel? Feels weird, different, odd, illegal, immoral, unethical. I cannot believe they actually hire people that do this. What are they thinking? Well, what if your boss came to you and said, look, I'm going to give you another $250,000 a year if you learn to do it this way automatically? Practice. The point is, many of the things that we'll do when we're presenting that we coach people to do, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'd never do that. That's because it's uncomfortable. It's not that it's wrong. And that's the other, and so if we're going to grow, we have to be willing to do the things that are uncomfortable for us until they're no longer uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Assuming they're producing the result we're looking for.
Yes.
If they don't, just because it's uncomfortable, it's not a reason to do it. Is it producing the result we want? If it is, do more of that. If it's not, don't do it.
And I love that you said that's not immoral, illegal, unethical.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. So what would be some parting words of wisdom for our audience on how they can really harness what they're currently doing or what they were doing if it wasn't coaching, and being able to integrate coaching into that?
A couple of things. One is continue to grow in what you already know, because that will also give you different perspectives on how to teach someone else or how to coach someone else. So continue to grow in what you know. Second, figure out, how would I coach somebody to do what I do? And once you have that, if you've got a 10-step, 5-step, 10's not the magic number, it just works well because 12 weeks is the standard package. But if it turns out to be 5 or 7, okay, just tack an intro and a review session on the ends. But figure out, how would you teach somebody to do what you do? And then what are the questions you can ask that are going to help them get there? Be constantly evaluating that. Then, find some people who want to know what you do, offer it to them for free. And to 1 or 2 or 3 people, take them through your process, get their feedback after every session, and refine it. In addition, I'd also recommend that you take advantage of we have a coaching mastery discussion forum that is free at coachingmasterycommunity.com. And you can use that. It's a Google Doc. And so it's the process we follow after every session to evaluate how our session went. And I say this as part of the leadership team for Coaching Mastery Community. It's free. And then the great thing is you put your email in there, and when you hit submit, it will send you a copy of what you've done. But you can have that conversation with the person who was in your session. I mean, you're giving it to them for free. Just say, hey, can you take 15 minutes at the end and let's just talk through this?
Yeah.
And so you get their perspective, their insights, and you get it sent to you in an email. And then you get to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working. And as we continue to learn, as we continue to develop the mastery in what you already know, you're going to find additional ways to help people with that.
Awesome. If you're interested in the coaching mastery discussion, send an email to support@coachingmasterycommunity.com, and we will send you the link for that so you can implement and utilize that today, because it's a great tool. Yeah, it's important to use the tools that already exist instead of having to spend the time and energy to create new ones.
Yeah. And like I said, there's no cost to it. So
fantastic. Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for unpacking a little bit about your really long history and your expertise, and kind of what led you to jump into coaching as an additive to what you're already doing, and as a way to be able to expand your impact and your reach, and to be able to go even further than kind of what you were doing with Dale Carnegie. So I'm excited to see what else you come up with and what else that you do.
Thanks, Sheri. Appreciate it. And thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. And if you are a coach that is either at the beginning stages of your journey, in the mid stages where you're kind of starting to get a little bit of a rhythm and you've got some business systems, but you're like, now I want to, scale, like I feel like I'm at that point, or you're like already scaled and you've got a hustling, bustling, super profitable business. Any of those 3 positions that you're in, the Coaching Mastery Community is an international virtual community of amazing coaches that are all dedicated to their own development, own professional growth, and personal growth, quite frankly. And we focus on helping our members to increase their coaching mastery as well as their business mastery, because you kind of need both sides in order to have a successful coaching business. Like, you actually have to be a good coach. Otherwise, you might get a lot of clients, but they're not going to stay. But you also have to know the business side, because if you have a lot of clients, but you don't know the business side, you're probably not going to be as profitable as you need to be in order to sustain the mission and the message of what you're doing. So both sides are really, really important, and we focus on both sides. So we would love to have you join our free Facebook group, which is the Coaching Mastery Community. Just type it into the groups in Facebook. You will find us. Also, we have a paid community that has a lot of extra opportunities for learning, connection, and building your competency and mastery. So if you're interested in more details about that, also, you can send us an email or go to coachingmasterycommunity.com, and you can press the button for getting on a phone call with one of our leaders. And we would be happy to share with you kind of what we're doing and how it could potentially be helpful for you. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey Podcast.